Yeah, absolutely. Like this playoff, like I'm looking into like some people are saying about it, and I think a lot of it is giving more teams a chance, which we love. I mean, that gives you
Yeah.
just like what you mentioned, the Cinderella story is possible, especially for teams like going back to last year. Cincinnati was a fantastic football team. Their schedule in the American really screwed them. That's really what it came down to. And the fact is, like, not giving them a chance was obviously a blow. Like, I mean, you as a small conference team, you're like, oh, well, what do we have to do to put ourselves in
Yeah.
the position
It's like, do
to
we
make the
have to
playoff?
beat every team by 40 every year, and
Yeah,
then make our case in front of the committee to get be able to put in the playoffs? That's the one thing that I always had a problem with is like how are these small how is like a Western Michigan supposed to get into the playoffs? How is Cincinnati going to get in the playoffs? How is smaller teams I'm blanking, but a Boise State, how are they supposed to get into the playoffs if they play really well? Like, how are those guys going to be able to make a case for themselves where it's no doubt 100% that they deserve to be in the playoffs when the committee just wants to have Alabama, Clemson, and just a set group already put in the playoffs? And that's the one thing that I'm super excited is we'll see these small teams.
yeah, and I think the biggest thing that I've found so far is why teams, or why I should say, not necessarily teams, but as coaches and analysts and everything that are kind of opposed against they like the four team and that they should stay, is bringing in more teams isn't going to really change the outcome per se as far as paper concerned, which I don't agree with fully, but I kind of understand what they're coming from in the point of more games needing to decide who's the champion. Because when you look at it as far as a journey aspect, teams are playing already 12, 13 games a year, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. Obviously, we saw the less version a lot last year due to the COVID protocol
Yeah.
situations where some teams would have to lose 2, 3 weeks of the season. Michigan, it's okay. But I mean, now we're talking 12 games. Some teams are going to play possibly 3 to 4 games extra. Now you bring in the health concern. Now you're going to basically be playing near NFL's type schedules, which some people might not adjust well to. And that now you're going into the biggest game of the season with one of your least healthy rosters. Just hypothetically speaking. Like if for example, if you were Alabama and you played in this format and you're playing, let's just throw in Cincinnati hypothetically. If it was an 8 team playoff, hypothetically going off of last year, Cincinnati probably would have been the 8 seed and would have probably drew Alabama. What if Alabama goes on and plays Cincinnati? There might be a close play somewhere, random time in the game. Maybe there's like third quarter, and just a kind of a pointless time in the game. Alabama's winning. That Saban's running his 2 minute drills, looking ahead, and there's just a really ugly hit on Mac Jones. He twists his ankle. He's got a compound fracture on his foot. Now you're without your starting quarterback going into the actual important games. Now, is that more on Saban not pulling him out? That hypothetical, it's just an example. But if that happens, like especially with some teams where they rely on huge talent, notably Oklahoma and their quarterback position, if you lose that, especially in a high game tournament scenario, it might hurt your team, especially if you're a lower team where you're relying on your star power a little bit more than usual